Welcome to the Project, the podcast with the mission to cover every project throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And this week we watched the extraordinary episode Pet Project.
It was an extraordinary episode, as in an episode of the new Disney series, Extraordinary.
That's correct. Disney Plus super comedy that I mentioned, I think, last week, wasn't it?
Yes, you did.
And then I was partway through and I realised that there was an episode with Project in the title.
Yeah, I was literally like, oh, I'm going to watch that. And Christina was like, oh, yeah, I wanted to watch that too. And then you messaged me saying there's an episode.
Yeah.
I said to Christina, well, we need to watch it now.
I think they've been doing quite a lot of advertising because I kept getting pop-ups before, not pop-ups, like ads on Instagram and stuff like that. And and I've got some synths as well, so they're doing well with that because it's definitely got out there. Yeah, it's a fun little comedy that we talked about last week, and we will be talking through a specific episode this week and talking about it generally, where we got up to and all that sort of thing.
I think we're both 3/4 of the way through the entire series,
yeah,
so we won't talk about the whole thing, but we can give a general gist up to that.
General kind of, thoughts on it and that sort of thing. So we've got time codes in the episode description, so if you want to skip straight to that, you can do. We've got project news and we've got personal projects at the end as well. But before that, how are you, Lewis?
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty good. We're recording a little earlier in the week this time, so I'm not as tired, which is
always good.
It's good. I went to a gig over the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Went to see Black Flag, 80s hardcore punk legends.
How was that?
Yeah, it was good.
Cool.
I enjoyed it. First gig I've ever been to that didn't have an encore though, which I just thought was weird. But
You're like, come back out, please.
yeah, and I was like, oh wait, no, they did play the two songs that I thought they were gonna play as the encore last. So, but yeah, no, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I also like going to a gig on a Saturday is so much better than a weekday.
Yeah.
You kind of got all day to do stuff, then you just hop on a train whenever, and then you get back at whatever time, and it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't impact the whole thing.
Yeah. I need to go to more weekend gigs. I'm getting old.
Yeah, or just have. Well, it's when it's London for us, isn't it? That's that really takes the time. But it's either that or you book time off. Which I know the next gig that I'm going to, at least so far in March, we both got time booked up.
Yes,
we go see King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard,
which we have mentioned a few times. Not that we're going. Mention the band a few times.
The band. They're probably the band that gets mentioned most on this, aren't they?
But yeah, Black Flag were good. I'd kind of looked up set lists before
just to get a vague
and
idea
it was I had made a Spotify. I've already got a Black Flag Spotify playlist, so I just kind of took stuff from that. And it was very similar to my Black Flag Spotify playlist. So I was like, that's great. There was a couple missing, a couple of extras. So I was like, so essentially it's what set list I would have chosen.
They're one of those bands. Haven't they had quite a few lineup changes over the?
Yeah, so they had
because Henry Rollins isn't in it anymore. Is
no,
he?
So they had like
the only one
4 different lead singers in the first 4 years, and then got Henry Rollins just after their debut album, and then did a few albums with him. But the only remaining member is Greg Ginn, who's the guitarist, who's been the only constant member. So it's kind of like if you wanted one guy to be there, it'd be him, because everyone else is kind of chopped and changed. I think one good thing they did is that they had like a young vocal. I say young, he was probably like 30, 35. But it means that he's not an old guy trying to still sing. It kind of works because they can do the musical stuff, but you haven't got somebody whose voice has gone.
Like,
which Henry Rollins might be by this point.
I don't know. Well, he's straight edge, isn't he? So he
might have held his voice.
But he's a pretty in shape guy from what I've seen, isn't he? He's always been
a bit of a gym bro.
Well, it takes its toll in other ways, doesn't it?
But yeah, Black Flag were good. I'm glad it's one of those bands that you kind of like. Yeah, they existed back then. Never thought I'd get a chance to see them. So
that is cool. Yeah,
it was good. How have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, a little bit. I've got a little bit of a tickly cough thing going on. I think it's just the weather and just
a couple of people at work have got
there's a couple of people at work off. I was working from home today and I was messaging one of my mates at work and he was like, yep, this person's off and 2 of us in the office have coughs, and I was like, oh, that is burning through our little team there, isn't it?
Yeah, we had 2 people go home early today because they're a bit ill, so I was like, I'm gonna lock myself in the office and not go out.
I'm home again tomorrow, so hopefully I can get through it and then get back to normal week. But there's this one thing I was going to mention mention up front before we get into any of the segments Freud. Did you see there was some news about Doctor Who and Disney Plus? Did you see anything about that?
No, wait. And obviously Disney Plus have bought the rights in America.
Yes, so they've got the worldwide streaming rights, which has come with extra funding. So
yes,
Russell
T.
Davies
spin-offs.
Oh, they might be, yeah. But Russell T. Davies has basically said that it's like the most money Doctor Who's had ever. And he's like, it's not on par with like Star Wars or Marvel shows. And he mentions Star Trek as well, because obviously he doesn't know exactly what Disney owns. But he's like, it's nice because it gives us a little bit more freedom with stories and writing. And
I hope it works out, because I think part of the charm of Doctor Who has always been how it's quite cheap, and how it's like it's a cheap British BBC program.
Yeah.
I'm not sure a more expensive American Disney Plus program would have the same magic. It's still Russell T. Davies, so hopefully it'll be fine. Pretty.
Yeah, he basically said like it's a new age, streaming age, and like he's like, it wasn't my idea, it was BBC's idea. And I think we spoke about a couple of months ago about how BBC were kind of potentially selling off certain licenses, and obviously they haven't sold off the whole thing, but this is obviously part of that whole thing. So that might be quite fun for it to have, even if like visual effects and stuff are just like that little bit better. Yeah, that might be quite nice. But I thought I'd mention that up front because we talk about Doctor Who every other week pretty much in the seams of things. Yeah, I am going to try and get back and watch some. I might not do a full rewatch like you've been doing, but definitely some key episodes leading up to the special end of next year, isn't it? David Tennant, November or something like that. But yeah, that's all we've got up front. So move on to first segment.
Yes.
Let's
do this. Project News.
Woo!
So the first one, there was one about Kate Middleton, but I don't really care about her, so I didn't do it. So the first one I've got is one you sent me, actually. I
didn't read it, it just popped up.
There was also an article on NME about it, and I nearly just went with that one instead. But it's from Sky News. It's Eva Green gives evidence at High Court in lawsuit over collapsed film, saying she fell deeply in love with the project. Obviously best known for like James Bond. So she was signed up to
I thought you were going to list a load of things there. Best known for James Bond.
Well, James Bond, yeah. So she was signed up and was an executive producer on this film called A Patriot with Charles Dance and Helen Hunt, which was abandoned in 2019. And she's suing, basically because she's suing for $1 million that she said she was owed because it was in her contract. Basically, she walked away because there was a load of budget cuts, and it was essentially, as she described it, become like a B movie.
Right.
And she's basically saying like, if she has like a leading role in this B movie, it could like ruin her career because she'll be seen as an actress of that kind of level. So she's suing them for the money she missed out on not being in this film because they cut.
Because she would have taken that instead of doing something else, in theory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because she'd signed up and was working on it for ages and stuff. And she described the producers who she's suing have tried to like make her out to be like a complete diva about everything. Okay. And some like WhatsApp messages come out where she called a producer a fucking moron and another one as evil. And she's kind of been like, well, yeah, I was like pissed off. Like you say emotive things when you're pissed off. And yeah, it's kind of ongoing at the moment. I've never kind of got that kind of diva thing from Eva Green. She seems pretty chill.
Diva Green. Yeah, she does. Yeah, I'm trying to think. She was in, so we were talking about Dark Materials recently. She was in the Golden Compass, which was the movie adaptation.
Yes.
She played the lead witch that helps Lyra and a couple of the other characters. I know she's been in she was in that Miss Peregrine's Home for Strange Mutant Children or whatever, just like Tim Burton's X-Men, goth X-Men film. I never watched that. I know she's been in lots of things. She was in a kind of romancy film when she was quite younger that's quite arty. And I see lots of screenshots of it on kind of like film Instagram and stuff. It's like her with two guys. It's kind of a love triangle story.
Right.
People are probably going to be shouting at their phones about the name of that film, but I've never seen it. So, but yeah, she definitely has a bit of kind of prestige about her, I would say.
Yeah.
So I can see why she would not want to lower herself to doing a B movie or C or D.
And she said it was like one of the best scripts she'd ever read, and then it became this kind of underfinanced thing that would have just been a mess. I understand why walking away. I kind of understand why she wants to get her dues for it. So be interesting to see how it plays out, because I've never really seen a case like this before.
No, it's funny because there's like the two other people, Charles Dance and Helen Mirren, was it?
Helen Hunt,
I was going to say, because Helen Mirren and Charles Dance don't seem particularly picky about what they're in now. Like they are in some not great films. So I would be like, they probably stayed on for it, didn't they? But then it never happened then, did it?
No, it got cancelled back in 2019.
Helen Hunt, though, I'm not as familiar with her.
But she's a big name as well, isn't she? I can't remember it's exactly anything she's been in, but I guarantee I've seen her in something.
Yeah. Helen Hunt. Oh, she's...
She is.
She is known for As Good as It Gets, Twister, Mad About You, Castaway.
Oh yeah, she's Tom Hanks's wife in Castaway.
She is his wife in real life? Who's his wife in real life? Real life wife. Mrs. Hanks' wife. Rita Wilson, so no. Oh, this is good, isn't it? That sounds like a complicated story. I know there's the one thing I can think of that was like that, and I think it was it was pre the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing, but I think there was something where Amber Heard was in a film that then it had a similar thing where the budget got cut loads, and it came out still, and she was really unhappy, and she did a bit of a legal thing about it because of the way that it changed over production.
Yeah,
but it wasn't quite on the scale of this.
You see it sometimes where like writers or directors take their names off projects because they get underfunded. Yeah. But I guess it's different when you're not literally like
you can't hide from it. Yeah. Oh dear.
The other bit of project news I got is fucking ridiculous.
Okay.
I saw the headline, I was like, fuck me. It's from the Daily Mail.
Okay.
And it is full Daily Mail.
Oh God, okay, I'm ready.
Woke Disney, a great start, is slammed for the 1619 project on Hulu by viewers who have boycotted the service as it refuses to say how much Nicole Hannah-Jones was paid to present it.
Wow. Okay.
So obviously, what we spoke about last week, 1619, a history of Black Americans
from slave trade onwards, wasn't it? Kind of thing. Yeah.
So obviously, the Daily Mail think that's woke.
It's incredibly woke. Come on. Talking about people's real life histories.
Yeah, they say that the 1619 project aims to reframe America's history by placing the consequence of slavery and contributions of Black Americans at the very center of the United States national narrative. And it's like, it's like almost as that's a fact.
That is true, and we know that outside of America.
Like the first 100 years of American history, there was slavery. The next 100 years, there was Black people were second-class citizens. And then since then, it's been trying to get equal footing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Black history is quite central to American history.
It's incredibly essential to the American experience, isn't it? And it's kind of ridiculous to just exclude that. It's not kind of, it is incredibly ridiculous.
Yeah, some of the people they've got here who criticised it were New York Post politics and culture writer John Levine. New York Poster, it can be a bit questionable quite a lot of times. And they had Kingsley Cortez, who said, greatest story never told because it's fake. Who was a campaign member for President Donald Trump at the last election.
Yep.
And then finally, somebody who said it was propaganda. It was a propaganda campaign on race. Was former Republican House Speaker Newt Gingrich.
Oh yeah.
So
lovely guy,
a bunch of twats, and it's like, oh yeah, these dickheads don't like being shown American history.
Yeah, it's like the holding a mirror to yourself kind of thing, isn't it? And it's like, it is uncomfortable, I'm sure, for them. People who, you know, have effectively made their life off of other people's misery and people being second class, third class citizens. But it's a different level of kind of head in the clouds when you seem to think that it's entirely fabricated.
And
stuff,
like Newt Gingrich, I've just looked up. He was 25 when Martin Luther King was shot.
Yeah.
So like he was a grown man when all this was going on.
Yeah.
Like it's in his lifetime.
But you also look at it like he had 25 years of living in a society when things were very different to how they are now, or at least on the surface level were very different. I'm sure lots hasn't changed in the political sides of it.
There's some comments saying there's a bunch of Twitter accounts saying they're cancelling their Hulu subscriptions, and
it's probably 300 people, and they all have the Southern States flag as their icon.
Yeah, one's called Proud USA Vet with a I want to say it's American flag, but I can't guarantee. And then an American flag as their logo, saying it's woke bullshit from the liberal entertainment industry.
Yeah,
it's like it's so.
There's been a lot
ridiculous.
of that this week. I don't want to go too much into it because I know that. Well, you may watch the Last of Us series at some point, and I'll talk about the third episode a little bit in personal projects. But the third episode focuses on a romance between two men, and that's the majority of the plot.
God.
And there's been a lot of people posting like, oh my god, The Last of Us has gone woke. And it's like, if you paid any attention to either of the games, it's like there's lots of characters that are LGBTQI, and there's lots of this. Some of it in the first game is a note that you'd read or something, but it's there, and it's not like people just so good at putting blinkers up to stuff and focusing on like, oh, they were just friends kind of thing. It's that it's just it is maddening to see. It really is, like fucking in this day and age as well. Oh, god,
I think it's because in this day and age with social media and stuff, it kind of exposes all these ignorant bigots.
But then they get given platforms like this because it may well have been, how many people were quoted in that? Like 5 people.
Yeah,
it may have been just those 5 people, but it's made to seem like there's this big outrage, and it's like,
and it either gets the people who agree with it turning on the project,
Yeah.
or people like us talking about it because fuck them.
Yeah, so the Daily Mail have won either way, haven't they?
Yeah,
and
I gave them a click.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Maybe we should do no more Daily Mail for this.
Ban Daily Mail from the pod.
Or just read the article headline from what you can see without clicking on it and just make up the rest.
Yeah, but I
mean, it's no surprise really, is it, that whole thing?
No, it's just kind of funny that it's they write this shit. But that is project news for the week.
Yeah.
So let's go into the main topic, which is extraordinary. Yeah. I've written 2022 because I still think it's 2022, but it's definitely 2023. It's weird. At work, I like write the date a lot, and I've not fucked up at all. Always 2023. I know it's 2023, and yet when I come here, I seem to forget that New Year's happened.
I had the opposite, where I was supposed to write 2013 and I wrote 2023, and I sent letters out that had the wrong date on it, just talking about something that happened in 2013. And luckily it was just to other professional like bodies that we talk to all the time at my work. So it wasn't like someone that would be like, hey, I just sent another thing out. It was an email with an attached thing, and I just sent it afterwards when, obviously I mean 2023 because it was July 2023, and it was like talking about, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's my main issue in that area.
But yeah, we're focusing on episode 4, Pet Project.
Yeah,
which is our excuse to talk about this show.
Yeah,
I have gone, since I watched it, recommended it to a few people who've got back to it and been like, this is really funny, and I'm like, yeah, it's good.
There's some very good moments. I spoke about a couple of bits last week, but did you want to talk about it a bit overall? Have you got any background?
So created and written by Emma Moran.
Okay.
Couldn't find much out about her. Part of me was wondering if she's related to Dylan Moran, who's the star and wrote Black Books. Wrote some of Black Books with the other guy, but the star of Black Books. But all I could find from her history is that she used to be a writer for Have I Got News for You?
Okay.
So she's got like a comedic background, which makes sense. But this seems to be like her first big thing, which seems to be the same for a lot of the cast. Kind of weird that there's this kind of popular Disney series and it's got largely unknowns making and starring in it. So the lead actress is Married Tyres.
Okay.
Who plays
Mairead.
Jen.
I think it's Mairead.
Mairead, what did I say?
Married.
I even looked up how to pronounce that earlier. Mairead, who plays Jen. She hasn't been in much. She had a small part in Belfast, which I know we both saw.
Yeah. Which I didn't realise you'd watched.
Yeah.
That was really funny. I went on about it as if I was telling you.
Yeah.
And then you were like, yeah, and there's this. And I was like, wait, did you watch it? It's like I thought you were just playing along.
No, I'd never do that. No. I'd never play along and pretend I've seen something. I've never done that on pod.
Train to Busan, right?
I never even claimed to have seen that. You just assumed.
We both just Train to Busan's supposed to be really good.
It's also got Sophia Oxenham, who plays Carrie, Jen's best friend. She was in 8 episodes of Poldark. That's the most notable thing. I did not see that. Don't start accusing me of saying I saw it. I never saw Poldark.
I've seen the first episode of Poldark.
No, you haven't. Yeah. Bullshit.
Okay, well, Amy was watching it and I was in the room. Okay.
Okay. It's got Bilal Hasna as Cash, his first proper role.
Okay, yeah.
And Luke Rollison as Jizzlord.
Yeah.
Who's written a few really low budget stuff, but nothing.
Yeah, he looks familiar, but I think he kind of looks like a couple of people we know, mixed together.
Yeah, there is one guy in this who looks so much like someone we knew from uni.
Okay. What in this episode?
No. He's one of the vigilantes.
Okay.
Looks like a guy I lived with at uni.
Well, we might talk about him this episode. Well, not. We'll go into this guy's backstory. No, when we get to him, you can point him out.
Okay.
Cryptically. There's a couple other people you never watched Derry Girls, did you?
No.
The mum, the Irish mum, she's in Derry Girls. She's not in this episode, I don't think, that we're talking about, but she's in it. I recognise the stepdad as well. I've seen him in something. The one who's got the empathy powers and he can figure things out. The vet that's in this episode, I've seen him.
I really recognised him, but I couldn't figure out what.
I think he's in Chewing Gum, which I watched a little bit of. There's lots of British comedy faces. There's
the voice of the father. We never see the father because he's dead, but we hear his voice.
It
never says in the credits.
Does it not?
And it's not on IMDb anywhere. But as soon as I heard it, I was like, "That's Ardlo Hanlon, isn't it?" Yeah. He's got a recognisable voice.
I'm pretty sure it is. And he probably literally phoned it in this case as well. So
yeah, he's literally playing a character who's over the phone.
Yeah.
So it's got to be him.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, he like you say, he's got a very recognisable voice. He's a big name Irish comedian and got that kind of gentle quality that you'd want. Yeah. There's a couple other people they probably could have picked, like Dylan Moran. He's not got quite a nice
he's a bit more.
Dara O'Brien could have been in it. Brian.
Dara O'Brien.
Brian. But
I
don't think it's Ardlo Hanlon.
It's definitely Ardlo Hanlon. Do you want to guess the IMDb score?
7.
Oh, 8.
What? Is that the highest we've ever watched?
Maybe it's definitely up
Is that
there.
a series as a whole? Then?
Yeah. I didn't look up this individual. Let's look up this individual
episode.
Yeah,
let's do it.
What do you reckon this episode is?
7.
Shall I guess? I might guess.
Oh yeah, you guess.
I'm gonna guess it's a 7.5.
You've got it. 7.5.
If I get this right, then you must be shit at this.
Yeah, but you look at them more than me.
7.9.
Okay.
I
think it's got quite a good reception, this show so far. I mean, obviously that's the kind of scores there. Extraordinary Disney. I mean, there's lots of things popping up about it.
The highest rated episodes are the last 2 episodes, which are the
fantastic.
2 I haven't seen.
Yes. So that's another thing. So we both watched 6 episodes out of 8.
Yeah. And this is episode 4.
And this is episode 4. So we've gone back in time a little bit. Anything else you want to say up front there?
Yeah, I got the Google description, which is adrift in a big confusing world and armed with nothing but a bit of hope and a lot of desperation. Jen begins her journey to find her maybe superpower. In doing so, she might discover the joy of just being kind of okay.
Okay, it's a very dramatic. Is that?
I don't know why I did that.
Is that kind of just the languge as well?
Oh yeah, maybe
that's
why I did
playing on
voice.
like a kind of superhero drama there.
Yeah, also might be how I read
it. No, like adrift in a world.
Adrift in a big confusing world.
Yeah, like normally it's like two guys go to a bank.
Yeah. Adrift in a big confusing world and armed with nothing but a bit of it is still quite.
It's quite emotive language there. Yeah,
but I think it's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those where it's kind of got the ongoing narrative of she's not got superpower.
Yeah,
in the world
she's
of
25, and you normally get them around your 18th birthday.
Yeah. So that's kind of, but the episodes are still kind of individualized and they have their own subplots. It made me realize. Shall we explain what the show is before we start talking about it?
So should we do a bit of overall, like, when we say non-spoilers, like maybe spoiling the first episode kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe go through the episode in question and then do a bit of general spoiler chat at the end up to where we've got to. That. Yeah. So the first episode does a little bit of a slice of life of the three main characters, Jen, who is the Irish girl who has no superpowers and she's a bit fed up with it, basically. She's a bit... They're all like mid-20s and they're kind of not doing great career-wise and they're living in London, I assume. I think it is London, isn't it? Yeah, I think we see the Shard at some point or the Gherkin or whatever that other one is in Canary Wharf. And then there's Cassie, who's her best friend since school, we find out. Carrie. Well, Carrie, who we find out they've been friends since school. And she's kind of a bit of an emotional support for Jen throughout.
Yes, and she does have a superpower, which is she can bring people back from the dead.
Like a channeling kind of... like a seance type situation.
Yeah, which has some very funny bits.
And some quite emotional bits. It's one of the first episodes we kind of find out about the dad that you mentioned.
Which I kind of had guessed.
You kind of guessed.
And when she walked into it, I was like, oh. Yeah,
I think that is the first episode, isn't it? Because the whole through the first episode, Jen's every now and then phoning her dad for advice. And there's a couple of bits where there's a bit where it mentions about her sister's birthday. And it's kind of like, oh, why is he not going to it? And then we see that the mum's remarried. And then at the end, she walks in and it's her friend on the phone to her. Yeah. And she's channeling the dad. And it's like...
There is some points of this that are like a bit of emotional kicks.
That was really mostly kind of, comedy. I was like, damn, like... That's pretty. It's not exactly like a dark thing, but it's quite like heart-wrenching kind of.
I think it's interesting that so obviously I think it's 10 years ago everyone got superpowers, and you get them roughly when you turn 18, maybe a bit older.
So imagine
some people
they might go into it, but if someone was over 18, they all just suddenly got powers. At the same time.
No, because the
shop woman,
she said because she's. I don't know what a superpower is, but she's in the body of a child.
I think it is just that she's maybe always going to be a child.
Yeah.
But she was 50 something or 60 or something,
And she said one day she was just a child, which is quite funny. I think one thing I really enjoy about this series in general is that like it's got loads of people with superpowers, but it's kind of taken what would things actually be like?
Yeah.
So like it's got some people who fly around as like Ubers.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
You got some people who, just kind of like the shop owner who kind of get on with their lives.
Yeah.
Some people are quite shit at their superpower because they obviously haven't practiced it. Like there's one guy who can go through stuff but not very well.
No, he keeps getting stuck and stuff like that. And there's people who have kind of tailored their job, like you say, with the Uber guy. There's a guy who she works with. Jen's like main job is at a party supply shop.
Yeah.
And he can breathe like helium and he's using it to fill up balloons. And like, that's the only...
And there's some people I'm like, you need to change your job. Like the dentist who...
has the soundtrack projected.
Yeah, of the people she's interacting with. And also the vet who can talk to animals.
Yeah, because we talk about it in this episode, but he has it on his posters, like the real Dr. Dolittle or whatever it is, and it's like obviously he has a bit of a shit time with it, doesn't he?
Yeah, and there's we'll get into that.
I think like you say though, that it does an interesting balance between the real world of it, and also completely ignoring all the crazy consequences that would come with it. It's very, very kind of like a very dry humor to the whole thing, in that occasionally, like almost every shot of the street or something, there'll be either someone flying past, or like there's a bit where like a girl's just sitting on the lamppost in the background.
There was one with a guy who had like a censored face. He walked past, he's just on his phone, and his face is pixelated.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's quite fun.
And you just see little, like, almost, they're just like background jokes a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then occasionally, and sometimes they fit with people's personalities, like the guy that she's kind of on-off sleeping with, who flies around, and one of the girls calls him like a flyboy at one point, and he's very much got this very aloof attitude. Like it's quite clever in that way, but some of the world building is very kind of like, how does this work really? Like this episode focuses quite a lot on putting together a vigilante group, and we'll talk about it as we go through the plot, but it's like, are there not these people all over the place?
Yeah.
What do the police do? Do they have... I know it's not the purpose of the show, it's very slice of life, but I quite like that because it gets you thinking about it more than...
It makes... And it's sort of thing, it gives the audience the chance to build up the world in their own heads, so it being spelt out to them, which is quite nice, particularly when it's a comedy series, as you said, it doesn't really matter.
No.
It's kind of like, oh yeah, I wonder, because I hadn't really thought about the police.
No, I just,
So yeah, I wonder what...
Because I was
what that
thinking
would be
there's
like.
a bit where they're trying to get her power jump started, and they do like a fake kidnapping. I'm like, nobody's like, I know it's part of the comedy, nobody's like noticing, like, sure. And also like Cash, who's the third main character who we haven't mentioned yet, who is Carrie's boyfriend, who doesn't have a job and is a little bit kind of bumming around the house, and then starts up this idea to do a vigilante group, which I think at the start of this episode, he's just formed them, hasn't he?
Yeah.
His power is turning back time, which is like very, very powerful power, seemingly consequenceless as well.
But also, he doesn't really use it.
He keeps forgetting to use it, and it's not made a point of like, oh, I keep forgetting, like I'm so silly.
Yeah.
He just doesn't use it. And there's a point in this where he uses it. Is it this episode? He uses it a load of times, or is that the next episode?
I think it's the next episode.
Yeah.
I think it's the next episode, yeah.
He uses it a load of times in a row, and then he can't use it again, kind of thing. And it's like, there's lots of weird trust issue stuff with that as well. Like in this episode, he turns back time when he has a bit of an argument starts off an argument with his girlfriend. Like, if I was in a relationship with someone who could turn back time, I feel like I would
question everything.
Really question everything.
There's also, I think,
but he is quite like pure of heart generally, so I suppose that balances.
There's a bit. I think it's an earlier episode of this where Carrie is asked to like bring back a singer, and like finish an album or something. I was like, that should just be her career. Obviously, she backs out of it because the singer she brings back is a dick.
Yeah,
but like, bring back like Whitney Houston or something, and you're gonna fucking make money.
It's very like that plot was frustrating in the fact that it's like, it's when characters in a sitcom almost get a load of money and then something silly that, you know, in the end is like the right decision, but it's like, maybe you could have just not had your morals just to make this money, and then you could have done some good with the money.
In real life, everyone's taking that fucking money.
Yeah. But should we go through the plot of episode 4 then?
Yes. So it opens, and so to give a bit of backstory to this episode, they found a stray cat.
Oh yeah, that's the fourth main character.
Who they called Jizzlord. And it turns out the cat turns into a man. And it turns out he was a shapeshifter who became a cat. They don't know for how long, and he's kind of forgotten who he was. He still acts like a cat, and he's kind of in this.
I think they did figure out how long at the end of the previous.
It's like 3 years, wasn't it?
3 years, because he remembered a football score, and Cash looks it up, and he's that was 3 years ago. So it's at most 3 years, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like he doesn't know how to behave. He doesn't know who he is, and I think he's like my favorite character because he's just so like innocent and kind and just doesn't know how anything works.
Yeah, there's lots of moments with either muddling up like turns of phrases or just not understanding human stuff, which it's almost like when there's an alien character who's very naive. It's that kind of vibe, isn't it? Where they're like, how do you do this kind of thing? And it's very good.
But the episode starts and they go into this aforementioned Dr. Doolittle, the vet. Because they think he might have a microchip.
Yeah, at the end of the last episode, a magnet girl had like stuck. He got stuck to, and
and this is where we get a really heartbreaking bit where what the implications are of a vet being able to talk to animals.
Yes, because there's a little intro with him, isn't
there's a tortoise who just like wants to die, and he's like, kill me, you coward. And so, right, going straight off on a tangent here.
Go for it.
Me and Christine were talking about this. I actually paused it to have this discussion because whenever you get things like this where animals can talk, like this, like Dr. Dolittle, they have references in Doctor Who that he talks to a horse, and the implications there are wild.
Yeah.
Because the implication there is that all animals have consciousness, have self-awareness.
Have like stream of consciousness that matches ours as well.
Yeah,
like,
and there's a dog later in this episode who makes a couple of jokes.
Yeah.
And it's like, these animals are essentially enslaved then because they're conscious, self-aware beings.
But they're not showing it in that they would be, but then... Yeah, I think it's a case of kind of, because in this we don't hear any of it. It's always the doctor, the vet, translating for us. It may be a case of kind of, I mean, there's some human references in this, like he says, "Where did the dog pick up the word cuck?" and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and that indicates that it is human speech. But in theory, it's kind of like more the vibe of it kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, this dog hates you kind of thing. But they take it far enough that you're like, okay, so animals are aware.
I
know we do hear them all talking that first time, don't we? Yeah.
But that might just be what he's hearing because he's got.
That's
but
right,
it's
this is what I mean about the world building, like opening these doors that you don't then get to see into. And you're just like, oh god,
it's like fine, whatever. I don't care because it's just a comedy series. It's just like. It's interesting that you've kind of set
the whole
this
afterlife
up.
thing as well. In the first couple of episodes, you're like, okay, so all these ghosts are just waiting to be pulled back, and some of them don't realize they're dead. Like the singer doesn't know he's dead. He has to take a bit, but the dad, when he gets pulled back, he seems to be happy to just carry on a conversation.
I got the feeling that like when you die, you're just kind of turned off, metaphorically.
Yeah,
and every time she brings back, you kind of turn back on
at that point kind of
so
thing.
I guess because the dad has come back so many times, it's kind of a consecutive stream for him, which basically means he spends his entire time at this point talking to his daughter. He spends 24/7 talking to his daughter. But
it is wild. I feel like there's probably not more to it in the plot, but I feel like we'll probably see more of all these kind of things, even in maybe not the animal thing, but like the afterlife thing will probably be something that will
but yeah, they go to get Jizzlord a checkup, and we find out that he has got a microchip in him.
Yes.
Through the microchip, they can find out who microchipped him, essentially.
Yeah. So they get the address of his previous owner when he was a cat.
Yeah, we get here a racist rabbit. We don't hear what they say, but the doctor says
they're on the way out, and they're like, "Oh, look at this rabbit," and he's like, "No, I wouldn't pick him. He's racist." And you're like, "Oh god."
But yeah, they've got this address for a guy called David who microchipped Jizzlord.
And they think like at one point they're like, "Is that your name or is that the owner's name?" And they're like, "You wouldn't call a cat David." And then they go, and it is the guy who was called David. But it's his wake, isn't it? And he's passed away.
Yes, they turned up. At first, I thought it was a funeral for the cat.
That's what I thought.
There's so many pictures of the cat around. But it's not. It just seems, and we find out the cat was called Hercule
Poirot.
Like Poirot, yeah. And it's kind of like, oh, what do they do? And then they see a dog.
Yes.
And Jizzlord immediately reacts to this dog.
There's quite a good bit of like slow-mo turnaround, eyes meeting across the room. And the dog's like a very fluffy little, what are they called? Pomeranian, yes. I think it is. Yeah. And Jen is like, oh, that dog's so cute. And he's like, no, that dog is demon dog.
And he's like, let's steal the dog. She's like, you can't steal a dog from a wake.
Oh, and the whole time she's supposed to be doing, so Jen wants to get her powers. So there's this consultation for this expensive treatment.
Yeah.
And she's been meaning to go to it. And he goes, oh, we could go and do that thing that you've been putting off. And she's like, let's steal the dog.
And they run off with the dog.
Yeah.
And at this point, it breaks into I Fought the Law by the Cat. And in general, this series has got a really good soundtrack.
It's really good. Yeah. Some of it quite early on is songs that we like. There's a fiddler song in it quite early on.
There's a fiddler song. There's a couple of Wet Leg songs in this. There's a Royal Blood song at one point. I think
the Chaise Lounge is kind of like an ongoing theme that's in a couple of episodes. Right. And it's in the trailers that are on. So I think they've kind of picked that as their kind of ongoing.
Yeah, it's quite a mix as well. It's kind of old stuff like the Clash and I'm like, this soundtrack's good.
There's an article. I think it's an NME article that lists all the songs in every episode because there was one that I'd missed the chance to like Shazam it, and I just Googled and so you can look up.
What was it?
I can't remember now. It was John Grant or something. It was one of the sadder songs there. It was. I did actually save it on Spotify. It was GMF by John Grant and Sinead O'Connor.
Nice.
So, and there was a self-esteem song that I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna save that as well. But,
fair enough. But we've also had at this point a scene with Cash and Carrie where she wants to have sex and he's getting notifications from his vigilante group.
Yeah, he's in a group chat and there's lots of notifications. And he's got his sound on loud and it's ding, 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 ding. And I'm like,
and I can't remember what he says, but he says something he regrets. Unfortunately, he's got the power to rewind.
And she's like, she sees it in his eyes that he's going to do it. And she's like, no, don't tell me. And this is what I mean. It's like, oh, I don't like that.
The thing is as well, she reacts like, no, don't do it. But when would she have ever seen him do it? Because he would have rewound.
That's a good point. But maybe it's just the general realization look that he has.
Yeah.
But this is what I mean. Like, I mean, there's certain things
for everybody else's knowledge, he's never gone back in time.
No. Unless he can do the, like, touch someone and bring them back with him thing, which you can do in some things. But what I find quite interesting with the relationship between these two is it's quite kind of fallible, and it's not, they've got a pretty good relationship, but it's not perfect. And he's kind of putting her off to do his little hobby thing. And that's kind of something that seems to be progressing throughout. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they do break up, at least temporarily, kind of thing. And that's quite nice because it's nice.
It's nice when people break up.
It's nice not to have them just be like, I suppose it's like How I Met Your Mother, like Lily and Marshall broke up for half a season kind of thing.
But they seem like a real couple.
They do, it doesn't seem like, completely fake. But so that's happening in the background. And then what is he up to do something then? I haven't got notes through most of this, so I'm leaning on you, Lewis, for this.
We get that bit, and then we're back with Jen and Jezlord, who've gone to see Dr. Doolittle because they want to question the dog about Jezlord's past.
Right.
And this is where we get a bit of back and forth with the dog insulting Jezlord, calling him a cuck, and then he's like, oh, actually, I do know where you're from. He's like, he knows where you're from. Where is it? Homo Island.
And he's like, that's not a real place, is it? And he's like, no, it's definitely not. So the doctor's very kind of, he's got like this kind of naivety, but also like as if he's really worn down by his job. He's quite
which you would be if you can hear animal suffering.
Totally, because he says in this bit, so the dog basically says, if you, after doing a load of insults and saying he's going to take Jizlord's woman, which is Jen, and things like that, and some kind of any insults that stood out to you particularly? I think you've said them mostly. He basically says, if you take me out for a day out doing whatever, he says he hates his owner, and he's like, I want to go out and do whatever I want, and then I'll tell you. And the vet's like, oh, I could do with a day out with you. He's like, it's the screams that are the worst. And it's like, oh God.
Yeah, he should be like an animal rights activist or something.
But the point is that he can be like, what's wrong with you? And they can tell him. Yeah. And so he's an effective vet in that way, I suppose. But
he's just sort of some small
he should be able to turn it on and off, short, like you'd hope so. Because he wears like noise cancelling headphones in that opening, doesn't he? Yeah.
But then they go on the dog's day out, and the first place they go is a strip club.
Yes, he says he wants to do king shit, doesn't he, or something like that. Yeah.
And he immediately gets lots of attention from the strippers.
Yes. Big montage, club music, lots of shots,
smashing the shots.
Yeah.
Both Jizlord and Jen aren't really comfortable.
They're getting like lap. Oh, isn't it a lap dancer that splits into two? Or did you? Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're like one person and then they like split into twins.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that might have been the power. Because it looks like they come from behind.
I just assumed they got a second person.
No, well, unless they were standing directly behind them. I think it's like split twin, like a multiple man situation.
Fair
which
enough.
would be quite good for a stripper because you could do a joint lap dance and get double the amount of pay, wouldn't you? So
yeah,
I suppose that's the point there.
We get back with the vigilantes at this point and see a woman walking on a bridge and they kind of jump out at her being like, you need help.
Do you need any help?
And shit, her superpower is that she can ink like an octopus.
It kind of floats above her and then just like splats onto everything.
And gets all over her and she's like, do you know how hard this is to clean? It's like, some superpowers would be shit.
It is funny, there's that. And so the vigilantes as well. So one of them can summon fish.
Yes, he's the one I was talking about.
Oh, okay. I'll try.
Do you know who I mean?
Okay, yeah. I think I know who you mean. Yeah. Can summon fish. I feel like there's a way. So that when he shows it off, he just like concentrates, and then a fish kind of smashes through the window, like telekinetically pulled through almost. Would you say? Surely what you do is just have loads of like sharp fish in like pockets.
I don't know if he can throw them though. He can just summon them.
Yeah. I feel like there's something you could do with it. That's because he's just with them, but it's like,
You got a guy who can like go through walls, like between the atoms, and he shows it off by putting his hand in a wall, but kind of gets stuck with her. There's a speedster who's just got classic run fast powers, and he's a bit of a dick.
He's the one who kind of is fighting for the lead with Cash, isn't he?
Yeah. And then
there's the 3D printing bum guy
whose bum is a 3D printer.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what benefits that would have.
I feel like he's a support character, if anything. Like, takes him a very long time to print a little army man.
Yeah.
And then he prints a pen at one point, doesn't he? Like a marker pen, and they've got like a tissue holder.
But yeah, so they they're the pretty shitty vigilante.
And they've decided they're going to just help women. So when they're looking around under this bridge, so they're like hanging out in weird costumes under a bridge,
looking for women.
And a guy comes down and he's like, "Oh, I heard you're helping people," and they're like, "No, we're helping women," and it's very like they're missing the point completely, kind of thing. And and then what happens? Someone else comes along and
a guy's like, "Oh, I'm locked out. Can you help me?" And they're like, "Fine." They go to his place and they're like, "Right, the phase through the wall guy's got to do this," and he's like, I can phase myself through, not clothes.
Yes.
So he has to strip down.
Yeah.
And he goes through the wall and almost gets through and then loses his power because it doesn't seem to last very long with just his bum sticking through the wall.
He says it's quite a deep wall, so he didn't really realise how far he was going to be able to go through.
Yeah.
And it's just this big bum sticking out the wall.
And they're all just kind of stand there being like, well, I don't know what to do. At the strip club, they've started doing some drugs, snorting some lines, and Dr. Dolittle gets thrown out.
Yeah, he does the whole thing of like, no, none for me, thanks. And then they're like, go, I think the dog's like, you have to do it for me. Kind of thing. And then he's like, oh, well, I have been curious. Yeah, and then it cuts to him like being a bit manic and getting kicked out kind of thing.
And after they get kicked out, the dog tells his face via Dr. Dolittle. Where he like used to be seen in like some alley that used to go.
That's right.
And the dog's like, I just want to be free because this is a weird world where animals are conscious.
Yes.
So they let the dog free, and very, very predictably, it runs down the street, gets hit by a car immediately.
A big crash and a yelp, and the vet's like, I'll go take him to the vet. Because I guess it didn't die, which is nice.
We've got this other subplot going on where because Cash is focused on his vigilante stuff and he's not having sex with Carrie, she needs to have an orgasm.
She's very sexually frustrated. She's furiously cleaning the flat.
And at this point she goes, we get introduced to a guy in another episode whose superpower is people orgasm
when he
on touch them, which has got a very funny story of when he finds out he had that powers. When
his dad, who he hadn't seen for like 10 years.
He does something.
He...
they're playing football.
Playing football, he did a really good goal.
Save. No, he saved the ball like going through the window.
And
his dad goes to like shake his hand.
And then when he thought he was having a heart attack on the floor, he was doing chest compressions and they obviously carried... And he was wearing like light grey, thin chinos so everyone could see what was happening. And so he he wears gloves all the time.
But Carrie goes to see this guy because she's so sexually frustrated.
Yes, that's it.
Jizzface is looking through this alley and basically finds his old local because he knows there's a 6% blood orange IPA that they sell.
Right. Yep.
They ask the barman, he doesn't recognise him, but they're like, the landlord will be here soon, so they kind of chill at the pub.
He's got a pint of milk.
Yeah. Carrie's asked the orgasm guy if she can come and kind of persuades him to do so, and they kind of agree to do that, and he starts slowly sticking his finger out towards her.
And then as they're almost touching, she's like, oh, should you wash your hands? Because she had a bit of hesitation about it because she kind of sees it as cheating, which I can kind of understand. But she's so frustrated that she just wants to... Yeah, and then that buys a little bit of time in the middle, doesn't it?
Yeah, with them back to the vigilantes who just kind of not doing well. They raid, so most of the group have gone off apart from Cash, who's left behind to look after the bum in the wall.
Guy,
and they radio being like, "We're not doing well. We need help." So he kind of runs over to them, and they're in like a fight, getting beaten up.
Yeah, it's outside like a kebab shop. One of them's on the floor getting kicked.
And he reverses time, but he just about gets to the point where one of them says insult somebody's girlfriend,
and then a punch goes and hits the fish guy.
And he keeps going back, but it reminded me a bit of Lazarus Project, where he could just keep going back to that one point, but not any further, and it was just after the point that he needed.
There's a comment earlier in the episode, earlier in the series, that he's like, "Oh, I can't go back that far. It was enough to get Jen up in time for work or something like that. So, or she was going to be late for something or something like that. So yeah, he's got like a theoretical limit of how far back of
and he gets worn down. And then eventually the fast guy immediately ran away from this fight. And the two of them stand next to each other at the end, and they both just kind of turn and walk away.
Well, one of the guys who's beating them up like sees him because he's wearing a costume. And he's like, "Oh, you with these guys?" And he's like, no, and just like walks off. And it's like a real gut punch moment for him because he thought he was going to be this hero, and he feels like he's kind of let them down as he walks off.
Yeah, we get this bit where Jen gets back from the toilet and Jizzface has left the pub.
Jizzlord.
I kept writing Jizzface. Jizzlord is like sitting on the street outside, like crying. Cash is also crying because he's not the hero. Carrie backs out of the orgasm and finds Cash. And Jen finds Jizzlord.
And they're all kind of finding comfort in each other, having a little head on shoulder, you know, that kind of thing. And in that sense, like their relationship is quite realistic in that they go back to, you know, they're comforting each other and that.
Exactly.
And then you kind of see potentially a blossoming thing with Jen and Jizzlord potentially.
Jizzlord is like concerned that he won't like who he finds out he is. Because Jen made when he mentions the 6% blood orange that he was a craft beer guy.
He's like, "Is that a good thing?" And she's like, no.
He does kind of look like a craft beer guy.
It's funny when they go into the pub, like the first guy has like a big beard and his hair tied up. It's like they're obviously trying to do like a thing with this.
But he's concerned, and they kind of have this moment, and they agree to find out together what they're scared to find out, because she's also scared.
She's got to do her, because she might not have a power at all. Because at this point she doesn't realize she doesn't know if she's gonna ever get one. And it's a classic kind of finding out the test results for a medical thing. It's that kind of vibe.
And just they're getting close, she gets a text from Luke, who's kind of
the flyboy guy, fuck buddy.
She kind of runs off to him, and it's like, I just kind of...
She's missed that moment. She's obviously... She kind of doesn't really realise what's going on, almost. He kind of does realise, and then...
But also, he's still a cat in a lot of ways, so he doesn't quite get it. And then that's kind of the end of the episode. We get a short post-credit scene of a locksmith unlocking the door with talking to the mum and just kind of having a casual conversation.
Fun episode, wasn't it?
I enjoyed it. It was so this episode 4, the first 3 episodes are a bit more light-hearted, and here's where it starts kind of
the cracks in the different relationships.
I think it's the next episode where Jen and Carrie fall out.
Yeah, so they do a lot of digging into. Well, Carrie looks into the past because there's a girl who can do memory stuff, and realizes that maybe it's been a bit of a one-sided relationship, and cracks start to form with them at the same time as kind of with him and her and Cash, her and Cash as well.
Yeah, and Jen and Jizzlord fall out a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of everybody's kind of, and then, But overall, what do you think of the episode there?
Yeah, it was good fun. It had some very funny moments. The characters are funny. Their interactions are funny. The things, and I feel like each episode they introduce somebody new who's quite entertaining. So this episode it was Dr. Dolittle, who was just kind of entertaining and kind of an insight into different people's powers.
Yeah,
it's a really fun universe.
It is. That's why I was like, that's that. Just from the first few kind of minutes of the first episode, you get a little montage going through, and there's like the guy who the water almost splashes him. He splashes it onto Jen. There's the Uber people. There's all sorts going on straight away, and everyone you meet has a power. Like the mum, Jen's mum has the power to control technology, but because she's like 55, she doesn't know how to use technology. It's very funny.
I think what's good is it's not just the superhero stuff that's funny. It's a funny series anyway. I was with one of my friends on Sunday and was like, you need to watch Extraordinary. And he was like, okay. At 1:10 that night, he messaged me saying, you can't imply the customer is pegging her husband as Margaret Thatcher. I was like, oh yeah, that was funny.
That was good, yeah.
There's episode 1.
Is it? Yeah.
I was like, it's funny anyway, despite, and then it's also got this superhero stuff.
It reminds me of a lot, like not in a bad way, but a lot of shows of the last kind of 10 years that like not Fleabag's not really one of them, but like I mentioned Misfits last time, or Skins. It has like a little, Skins was never super funny, but there's a couple of, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it fits into that niche of kind of rude British comedies that are very down to earth and have like a good emotional heart to them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's just kind of the novelty is that everyone's superpower, which you know we're in a world where the MCU is like the biggest franchise going, and box office hits are superhero
It's not
films.
much of a leap for people. I mean, it's not for us at all, but you know, I can imagine it's resonating with quite a lot of people because that central, you know, drama and heart is really strong in there.
Yeah, it's like you see like some sitcoms. There's one on the moment, can't remember, that are set in like a fantasy world where it's just the peasants in the fantasy world, or even like the animated Star Trek Lower Decks, which is just the average people in this big kind of fantastical world. It's kind of like
it's
that.
A little bit like that, yeah. Or even maybe a little bit like What We Do in the Shadows in a way, where the vampire stuff is a lot of the comedy, but there is also just comedy to it as well.
Yeah.
It's not a very good example. There's vampire comedy and there's comedy. There's the two different types of comedy.
Yeah. So have you got anything? There isn't any trivia because there's not much info on this show.
Well, as we're both, because all of it's out and there'll be people who are listening to this who may have seen all of the episodes. Did you have any particular predictions of what you think might happen? Or like, do you think she's going to get the power this season? Do you think she's going to find out she doesn't have one?
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Because we see the friend of hers that she meets who's like a bad influence on her.
Yeah, gets a power.
It
might be that she just never gets a power and she just kind of has to learn to accept. I won't be surprised if by the end of the episode she's gone with this consultation, gone with the clinic, and they're like, yeah, sorry.
But they say that it's an ongoing thing. So that girl had been going for 3 years. So, they might just be like, we've tested you and there's no chance.
Yeah.
Because I could equally see it being that, or she gets some really like crazy power at the end of and then season 2 would be dealing with that kind of thing.
I feel like it might lose its magic a bit if suddenly she's got a really cool power.
I think it makes sense for her to be the only one who doesn't. But she finds someone else who actually doesn't either completely. I'm sure. Why is she not like looking this up online? And I suppose they do.
The thing is as well, like the other central characters. So Jizzlord can shapeshift, but I guess he doesn't anymore because he got stuck as a cat for 3 years.
He just doesn't want to do it anymore. Yeah, that could be another thing. He could go back to being a cat and get stuck as a cat.
Carrie uses hers for a job. She's a lawyer and does wills and stuff, but it's not part of her day-to-day routine outside of work. And Cash doesn't really use his much. So the main cast aren't like relying on their superpowers, which is quite nice. It's a backdrop rather than, it's not like, say, The Boys where their superpowers are their main feature of these characters.
It's almost like a case if you almost forget that they have superpowers sometimes, and then it just happens,
Yeah, exactly.
And they forget seemingly as well with Cash. I think I'm interested to see where the next 2 episodes go. I'm sure by the time we record next week, we'll have both watched those 2. It's only 40 minutes of content or so.
So, probably would have watched that by next week.
But no, I don't have much. You said there's no trivia.
No. So do you want to go into ratings? Should we do the episode and the series, or just the episode? I guess just the episode. That's the one with Project.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the full series, so I couldn't possibly give it. Do you know what you're going to give it?
I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah, I was leaning towards an 8, and that might be because we said 8 out of 10 earlier, and it was in my brain. I think 7's too harsh because it is one of the better things that we've watched.
It could be higher, but I don't know if that's because I'm influenced by the series as a whole rather than just the episode. Not to say it was a weak episode.
Yeah, I think because it's one of the better episodes. They're all pretty good, but just from memory, I think this is one of the more kind of unique episodes in the whole Dr. Dolittle thing with the dog. The country singer one was quite good, but it was a bit like, this is annoying. The school one was a bit like, oh, it's a school going back to school.
Yeah, she's a bad person.
Yeah, and it was also very like, I guess the whole point of that was it was reiterating how bad of a person Jen is, but I feel like it went a bit too. I don't know. They haven't really resolved that, actually, have they? Where we've got to.
I think as a series as a whole, I might go higher than an 8 from what I've seen so far, but I'll have to wait until.
I think that's what I was thinking. If the last 2 episodes are as highly rated as they are on IMDb, it could well bring the whole thing up to a.
Yeah, no, because it's not one of the weaker episodes, but I don't think it's unreasonable. Right, if you've got a series of 8 episodes and all episodes are an 8 out of 10, but the series is then a 9 out of 10, do you know what I mean?
I do, but that shouldn't be right.
No, but like consistency and ongoing stuff can then be a factor in that. And I think that's what I'm kind of leaning. Most episodes have been about an 8 out of 10, but the series is a 9 out of 10.
Fair enough.
Which isn't logical, but I think there's reason there.
Yeah, no, I do see what you mean.
What rating?
Yeah, I was going to go for an 8 as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So that is extraordinary. And we'll talk about the last 2 episodes in personal projects next week. Speaking of which, it's now time for this week's copy of Personal Projects.
This time it's personal projects.
So, Samuel, what have you been watching, reading, playing, dancing, painting, or anything else? There's going to be something else that you've done.
Well, we have been playing something, haven't we?
Oh, we have. Yes, we have.
Do you want to tell us about Shiver?
I'll let you, because you know better than me.
So Shiver is a tabletop role-playing game that I kickstarted about 1.5 years ago, I think it was. We played it once with a group of us, all ex guests on the episode, actually. It was me and you, David and Amy, when we played it first time around about 1 year ago.
That's good fun.
And we did that was when it was still in.
We may have even mentioned it on pod.
I think we might have done. It was still in Kickstart form, so it was all printouts, and it was a pre-made kind of zombie horror scenario. It's basically a role-playing game where it's more leaning on the kind of horror aspects, mystery aspects compared to like fantasy. It's not necessarily based in a kind of high fantasy world, but you can create whatever stories. And I wrote something up around kind of Halloween time last year with the intention of playing with a couple of you guys, and we finally got around to it, and we played the first half of a little adventure last Friday.
Yeah, it was good fun. Because Christine hadn't played it last time. She kind of spent the week fretting over the characters and how to do it, and it's like, it's definitely one of those games you just kind of go into and shit happens and you kind of go with it. But Yeah, good fun. We're halfway through it, and shit's going down.
Shit's going down. There's a lot of unresolved things, which is kind of the point of it. There's lots of bits that, because we're not very practiced, any of us, I'm not very practiced at running these things. There's certain things like I forgot to level anyone up throughout the whole thing, so we'll do a bit of a catch up when we start again. There's some interesting characters in there, aren't there?
Yeah, so you sent me a description of a guy that was gonna be like, because it's set in 1926. He's gonna be a World War One vet who's does labouring, and I was like, yeah, let's make him a caveman. So
that's my backstory. Did little introductions at the start, and I was like, okay, cool. It's like I knew you were gonna go somewhere a little bit esoteric with it, and that was pretty much the most.
It's been fun playing this caveman.
And just a man out of time, very literally there.
And
it's funny because we spoke about it a bit before and after that. With anything like this, like the dungeon master director in this case can craft like a very serious kind of straight story, but the expectation is the players are always going to fuck it up in some way, and you just have to be like, this is going to happen, and I'll try and keep things on track, but also go along with all the weird things. And last time I think David's character had crab claws and worked in the mail rooms, so I kind of knew what to expect with this one, but it's still surprising, that part there for me. But when I saw you react to that, I was like, I hope this doesn't fuck up the plot at any point, but it's too late now. I mean, I didn't really think too much about that, like, oh, here's a list of things you can't do, because it is what it is. And I was flying by the skin of my pants for a lot of that. My chair broke halfway through, didn't it? Almost fell off my chair. It was very, very dramatic.
Building up the tension. It was good fun. We kind of got to a literal cliffhanger.
Literally,
And hopefully we can finish that off soon. And we'll probably mention it on here when we
hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll resolve that, and you'll find out exactly what's going on that bloody island.
I need to know.
But other than that, I watched half of something that we mentioned last week. So I looked at the Oscar nominees for Best Picture, and I was like, which of these is the kind of thing that I want to watch on a Sunday night that's not too stressful and is a bit silly? And we watched the first half of Baz Luhrmann's Elvis.
Oh, wow. I was like, where?
And then the next day I was listening to the episode, and you were like, I don't want to watch Elvis. I hate Baz Luhrmann. And I was like, well,
I probably will have to watch it at some point. Is it on streaming?
No, but I can link you up, my guy. I've actually got it open in this tab here.
Okay, cool.
It's weird. It's fucking weird. Like, I like it, but it's weird. Like, you don't see Elvis for like 10, 15 minutes, which is quite fun because it builds up a bit of like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it's very Baz Luhrmann, as you can imagine, because it's directed by Baz Luhrmann, but it's quite choppy, the editing. It skips whole portions and you get caught up with what's happened in his career and stuff. It's quite fun. Like, it is very stylized. It's very stylish. There's lots of, like with Great Gatsby was one that, did you ever watch Great Gatsby?
Yeah.
Where you'd have very modern songs over very, not modern kind of eras going on. So some of that is quite interesting because it's real kind of contrast there. But generally speaking, like, I think Austin Butler is a very good Elvis. I don't know a lot about Elvis myself, but
no,
he plays really well.
I think he was nominated for Best Actor, wasn't he? So.
He might have been, yeah. I didn't really have a look at many of the other lists. I looked at Best Animated Feature, and a couple of them I've seen already.
Yeah, because we talked about Sea Beast.
Yeah, and Turning Red I've seen as well.
I've seen that, and Puss in Boots we spoke about.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have been. I've
seen a couple of clips of that, and like the kind of fluid animation is very Spider-Verse. It's that kind of.
Yeah, I've been telling people for years that the first Puss in Boots film is good, and nobody ever believes me.
You have. But I think this is like a whole other beast there. And, it looks really fun. Like, the action is really like almost anime level of like over the top. There's a scene which I've seen has been put side by side with an Attack on Titan thing, and they've almost taken like the general model of him like flying across rooftops, and there's like a giant thing, and he's up on the mace going down, and it's like very, very action-packed shit. So yeah, I'll check that out at some point. But yeah, Elvis, I'm gonna finish the second half probably tomorrow night, and I'll talk about it overall. If there's any crazy, Tom Hanks is fucking annoying in it though, right? He's got a fat
He's
suit
been
on.
nominated for a Golden Raspberry.
Yeah, he fucking does. He's got this weird European accent. The real guy, Colonel Tom, was Dutch, but it's this weird kind of German Tom Hanks accent that every now and then he'll go into like his normal accent. And the guy is supposed to have lived in America and he's pretending to be American, even though he's like, Elvis is here. It's like this weird like thing. And like, he's just fucking annoying, but he's kind of supposed to be this evil manager character. So I think you're supposed to kind of find him a bit overbearing and grating.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cast seem pretty good. And he's got this little entourage that are all a bit annoying, and you're like, I like you, Elvis, but I don't like any of these. And they kind of brush over his marriage where there was a bit of an age difference there.
Yeah.
It's like he's enlisted, or he's been called up to do his army training or whatever it is. And then it kind of cuts to he's like in this girl's bedroom and they're like having like a nice conversation, and it's like, they've fallen in love. And it's like, yeah, but in reality she was like 14, he was like 25. And it's like, and I think he knew her from when she was like 12 or something, isn't it? It's like, it's
very weird.
They're like, your parents really don't approve of this. It's like, yeah, no fucking wonder, mate. Like, I know it was 1958, but fucking hell. And then it just cuts to when she's an adult and she's got her 60s hair and they've got a kid or whatever. It's like, it's very, very kind of not necessarily whitewash, but a gloss portrait of her, obviously.
I'll try and watch it at some point, but it's not at the top of my list of stuff to watch.
Did Babylon? Was Babylon on there? I don't think it was, because I've heard wild things about that and I'd quite like to check it out. It's very, very cinema indulgent.
Seen this things about Angela Riseborough being nominated for Best Actress for To Leslie?
No.
So I saw this actually on TikTok a while ago before the announcements that loads of like A-list actors and celebrities have been talking about how great this film To Leslie is, and like everyone's like, what? Like nobody really saw it. It didn't have a big advertising. Most people haven't heard of it. It's really weird that all these actors have been like, oh yeah, this is really good. Then the lead in it gets nominated for Best Actress,
right?
And it turns out, like, I think the producer has been like telling all of their celebrity friends to really promote this film,
which is what we talked about last week. It's the whole like take them out to lunch situation.
And apparently the Academy are like investigating if there's any like foul play in this, and it's like, it's kind of like
the whole thing is that anyway. Like, it's just a very like,
it's a modern way of doing it.
Peak example of that. Yeah. Because the whole point is they spend money literally taking them out to dinner and almost buying the votes in some way.
Gary Oldman said that for years. He was nominated for an Oscar in like the 80s or 90s, and he said the whole thing was so tiring that he just gave up on it. It was only eventually, because it's Gary Oldman, that he won for Darkest Hour when he played Churchill.
Fairly.
And it's like he kind of went back into it like, I might as well get myself an Oscar.
I bet it's a fucking nightmare. But I was gonna say Babylon I'd quite like to check out, because apparently, I don't want to go into it too much in case either of us watch it, apparently the last sequence is just like wild. It's very cinema indulgent, and like the history of cinema is so good and that sort of thing. And it's Damien Chazelle or whatever who did La La Land,
right?
And do you remember at the end of La La Land there's that whole
I never saw La La Land.
Did you not? Okay, there's a whole sequence, so it's on-off kind of romance between Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling. And there's a sequence at the end of what could have been kind of thing, and it's very, very kind of abstract, and it goes into like watercolor paintings, and they're dancing around like in front, like as if they're on a stage kind of thing. It's kind of playing on different multimedias, and I imagine that this bit is like that, but even more kind of cinema self-indulgent.
Right.
I won't go into it too much unless you're really not bothered. We can talk about it maybe off pod.
I might get around to it. Is it on any streaming? Do you know?
No, I think it's still in the cinema at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But if it comes to it, in a month's time and you haven't heard anything, then I'll tell you what happens, because it sounds fucking wild. And the other one is Tar, of course, which I would quite like to see in the cinema.
I'd like to see that.
But there's a couple others that But yeah, what did you end up watching on the weekend?
So I watched a Netflix film that came out in the latter half of last year called Vesper.
Okay.
It's like a post-apocalyptic world where there's some kind of fungal thing.
That sounds familiar.
And there's it's quite like Hunger Gamesy, where you've got these people living in like a shit area, and you've got the Citadel where all the rich people live. It's a bit what was the other thing that it's kind of got the visuals are a bit Annihilation-y.
Yeah, I can see the poster here. I can see almost the hues of it as well. It's very kind of greens and turquoises.
So I said after it's Hunger Games meets Annihilation meets Jack and the Beanstalk.
Right, okay.
Which, if you've seen it, there's like a big thing about like seeds and like magic seeds, and at the end she climbs a tall thing, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Jack and the fucking Beanstalk.
And like, it's got a lot of like cool visual stuff, but it's a bit shit.
Right, okay. I mean, I hadn't heard about it at all. Was it something you were planning on watching, or was it kind of...
No, one of my friends who came over on Sunday saw a trailer for it on Netflix and was like, I want to watch this. And we're like, yeah, cool. But like, there's a real kind of lack of interest in plot. Like, there's a plot, but not a lot happens. And then like stuff happens, and it like comes up like these questions. Like they keep talking about the Citadel, which is like the capital in Hunger Games. You're like, oh, I want to know what the Citadel's like. And then instead of like answering the questions, they have like a reveal of something you weren't even wondering about, and it's like, oh, these people are skeletons. Like, what?
You're like, no, I want to know about the Citadel.
Yeah, and then it kind of ends, and they never get to the Citadel, and it was like,
did it feel like it was like begging for sequels kind of thing, or was
kind of, yeah.
And it's Netflix all through and through, from what you can tell.
Yeah, it's a French original. It says it's French made, but it wasn't dubbed or subtitled.
No,
it was just.
Was there anyone I'd recognise in it?
Yeah, there was one guy, Eddie Marson.
Oh yeah, I recognise the face on the poster. Actually, now that I say that.
Yeah, you would recognise.
Oh, he's in
fucking all sorts.
He's in all sorts of British stuff. Yeah, isn't he in At the World's End? He's one of them in that.
Yeah,
At the World's End. No, World's End. World's End.
Yeah, he is in that. He's in.
Is there like a robot head?
Yeah, so her father was like a war casualty and is like in a bed and can't move. So he's like mentally attached to this drone who travels around this girl who's the main character and like talks. He's the drone.
A bit like Through the Phone with the dead dad and the other thing we were talking
and
about.
Like a lot of it is like quite cool, like the visual stuff and like the plants and stuff are cool because there's been this fungi outbreak and stuff. But then it's just kind of like, just a bit shit. Like, and it's like I getting towards the end, and I was like, oh fuck, nothing.
The Guardian headline is exceptional post-apocalyptic sci-fi with a young adult edge.
I saw one review of it. It might have been on IMDb saying like it's got enough like visuals and world building to fill a TV series, but it hasn't got enough plot to fill a film. And I was like, yeah, and like stuff happens. But like, it's just a bit.
Is it like a case of, I've got to go out in the world and find out what's going on, and I haven't been out in the world before, and here's an adventure and stuff?
Not really. They kind of spend the whole time in this little village that's run by Eddie Marson, and somebody from the capital like lands there, and
I see.
Okay. Eddie Marson's like the villain, and he's a bit of maybe a rapist, and
lovely, yeah, good,
heavily implied, even though he's the uncle of the main character.
Okay.
It's just a bit like, and I don't really care about all the stuff.
I will avoid that one probably then.
Yeah, it's a real shame because when I kind of started and you kind of get into the premise, I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Quite fun, yeah.
And you get to the end and you're like, oh.
Not fun at all.
No, no, I kind of wish I'd watch something else.
Yeah. Well, I won't watch that then.
No. Yeah, I feel like usually for personal projects, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw this. It was good.
Great. Yeah.
And I was like, no.
Well, you know what it is, Lewis? It's because this one wasn't picked by you and everything else you pick yourself. So that's probably what it is.
Maybe a factor. Maybe next time I watch a film with this guy, I will pick the film. Yeah. Have you got anything else?
Yeah, well, I mentioned up front Last of Us episode 3. I kind of spoke about what I was going to speak about, but it's an episode which doesn't really focus on Joel and Ellie pretty much at all. There's a bit of an intro with them following on from the previous episode.
Right.
Then it spends a lot of time with these other characters going back to the start of the outbreak in 2003. So it's 20 years in the future. It's 2023, but from the opening of the first episode, the outbreak happened in 2003. So we get a bit of a backstory of these other characters, and then it ends up meeting up with the modern day.
Right.
It's great, honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if this episode is nominated for some like TV awards. Like acting wise and story, it was very, very, very good.
You mentioned the first episode was on YouTube, and I looked onto my YouTube and it was just there, the whole thing. So I might watch that, and if it
takes
draws me in, then I can go through the effort of finding it.
Well, I'm sure I can sort you out with my login for Now TV if you need it.
Yeah.
Watch the first one when you get a chance and see. Are you watching much else overall? I know Lost is finished, so you've got a gap.
Lost is finished. I was watching Extraordinary.
Of course, but that's only 40 minutes left of that.
Yeah, I kind of had a busy weekend because I was here Friday for Shiver.
Yeah, well, we finished at like 11:30, didn't we?
Yeah, and then what did I do on Saturday? I don't know.
You went to Black Flag?
I went to the gig in the evening, and then Sunday I watched Extraordinary, and then Vesper. I just feel like I've been busy, and I feel I'm busy.
You know what's funny
for the rest
is
of this
that,
week as well. Actually,
Eva Green's character in James Bond is called Vesper.
Yeah, I know.
So that's funny that everything's kind of
I was trying to find like a discussion about it or something on Reddit, and every time I searched Vesper, it's just stuff about Casino Royale, and I was like, because nobody's talking about this film.
Is it a drink as well?
Maybe. Don't know. It's Italian motorbike thing.
Yeah. I think it's a drink, but that's not really important. It's a cocktail. It's a martini, which I think maybe comes up in James Bond.
I thought it was a martini. Maybe because it's James Bond.
Yeah, it's just a very specific type of martini. But I can't think of anything else. I finished Sunshine, but we talked about that last week. I only had the whole like slasher bit with Mark Strong chasing them around. I had that whole bit to go. I don't think I'd ever seen the ending. So I kind of didn't really know, because I said last week, I was like, I watched it when I was 12, and then I checked the dates and it came out when I was 14. So I definitely didn't watch it when I was 12. But I couldn't remember any of the last part at all when he's like doing the like he has the dreams about like hitting the sun and all that, and it kind of comes true in a way. And it all very dramatic, very, very good. There's as they get closer to the sun, the gravity situation, everything starts warping, and they're all like, whoa.
Yeah.
Everyone just gets picked off very quickly by the slasher. Great film. Very good. Very good. But nothing else from me.
Cool. That brings us to the end of, I was going to say the episode number, but I don't know. 74? 75?
No.
76?
Yeah.
76.
Best episode so far, I reckon.
It's definitely the top 100. If you agree it's in our top 100 episodes, give us 5 stars on your podcast listening platform. It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
And it's always nice to see. You can get in contact with us directly, can't you, Sam?
Yes, you can. You can send us an email at theprojectpod@gmail.com, or if you want to find us on any social media, you can find that in the link tree in the episode description. So if you want to suggest any future topics that we cover, you can do it there. Or if you just want to see when our new episodes and clips coming out, you can follow us and see as we post stuff.
Yeah.
Also recommend it to people. Share all those posts and that business.
Yeah, that's always helpful.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Cool. Pretty good. So that's another pretty good episode from us. And thanks for listening.
Thank you. I will hear you next week.
I'll see you at the pub from Extraordinary. Bye. 1 pint of milk, please. Bye. I should have said Homo Island, shouldn't I? Well,
you have now.
Bye.
Bye.